So hello everybody and welcome to another video. Over the videos this week I've been talking to you guys about how I wanted to do a talk about that shaman's work plus another data miner, as it turns out, over the past month or so when it comes to finding out little bits of information about Heart of Thorns. So everything I'm about to talk about in this video is pretty much unofficial speculation about stuff that's coming in future patches and weird little hidden things that we've managed to find. So what we'll be looking at is some stuff about some new monsters, about the Revenant skills and weapons that they have available, some stuff to do with Elementalists getting their sword in their main hand, and a whole bunch of other stuff, including, actually, I was talking to that shaman earlier before making this video, and he shared a couple of things with me that he hasn't actually posted about anywhere else so far, namely about a couple of new things we'll be able to harvest, which are kind of interesting. Got a couple of images of those for you. So let's just jump in. I'm going to sort of be going backwards in time. So one of the most recent things that has been posted about is this wonderful map here that you can see of the new Map Verdant Brink. And so this is the one that we've been playing in. I got to play at Brighton. A few people have got to play in their like little closed betas so far. But this is kind of the mined-full version of the map, with a bunch of waypoints as well stuck on it. So waypoints were separately, and points of interest and things, separately mined out, and their locations and things, and then they were sort of painstakingly in Photoshop plastered over. So Lethal Vantage over here in this bottom right hand corner, this is where we've been playing in the demo. Very, very little area really compared to the whole map. This is obviously where we get the adventure. This is the small plateau place that we've seen the devs have been showing a bunch of these events off in, and the Wyvern fight kind of takes place far in the sky above this, but we've been very limited. We can't really go anywhere else, okay? And so we get a much wider view of the rest of the map. There are a lot of icons here that aren't showing up on this map. As some of you may remember in my video when I went to play the demo, I kind of scraped the northern edge of where it was playable, and I got to see some like extra icons, some new mechanical kind of things off in the distance. Those aren't included here, but we can see, of course, we've got the Itzel ground to the north, a couple of points of interest around. You've got Utoki's archive. Could be something. When I read archive, I kind of think this is going to be kind of an exclusive place. Maybe we can only get to when we've mastered some mastery tracks, but that's massive speculation there. We've got the Pact flagship waypoint. The flagship's been mentioned a few times by the devs. This is one of those places where they say, hey, look, you can climb really, 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 really high up, and one of our early objectives is actually going to be to get all the way up here. I mean, one of the earliest things we can look at here is kind of the size of the map. And I would still say this isn't necessarily a huge map from what we can witness. It seems kind of more like a mid-sized map, maybe a little bit bigger than perhaps Silver Waste or Drytop. But also do consider that because there is so much verticality here, and the layering of the content they've done, we could spend way more time here than, like, even though it's a smaller area of the world, what is there is worth more in terms of playtime, if that makes sense. So, of course, that entirely remains to be seen, though. We do have another version here where you'll notice the middle section has less going on, and that's because this whole area up the top here that you'll see popping on, this is where we participate in the Wyvern fight. I do actually have another image purely of the Wyvern fight area here, which has got some other oddball things, maybe some other areas that we climb up quite high every now and then. But this is kind of what the map does when we go up here, and here you can see the Pact flagship obviously destroyed and tangled up. I guess these are the very, very high areas, like one of the biomes perhaps that they were talking about. But this version of the map here kind of shows it all layered on together. Down here we've got Dust Dancer Plateau, can't really derive too much information from that. Over here we've got Malagan's Valor Waypoint, Malagan being the supposed god of the Quaggan, or the deity that the Quaggan revere. Many people believe is the same as Melandru. So here's Malagan's Valor. And down here we've got Farron's Flyer too. Farron's Flyer waypoint. What, did Farron have his own kind of airship or something? This is very exciting. Obviously means Farron will have something to do with the expansion. They talked before about how outposts and the way they're designing dynamic events around them allow them to focus much more on specific characters. And remember how they even said a character who's involved with outposts and events in one map may still be involved in other maps too. And the whole point is that we get to know characters in far greater detail than we do in current dynamic events. Current dynamic events, no one cares about any of the NPCs associated with them. And so I wonder whether this is going to be sort of Farron's involvement in the expansion. Is he going to have a whole bunch of dynamic events and stuff right out there in the world for us, not just be hidden away in instances and story steps anymore? That'll be kind of cool, you know, if this ends up being some kind of an outpost of his own. The other really cool thing to notice about the map before we move on to some other stuff is, given its size, there really aren't too many waypoints around, are there? It looks like they're sticking with what they settled on for Drytop and the Silver Wastes, which is less waypoints means more. More walking around, more adventure, more experiencing the game, and it's not so few of them that people are going to feel crazy restricted, but I like it a lot. I'm an advocate for this, and having less waypoints, and they certainly seem to have stuck with it. So that's cool. There should be a lot of exploration and seeing all these different events and states that the maps can be in. Moving on, there were 2 other maps that have been mined. There's changes to Ratasum for some reason. So this is one of them, and the other one is here. Obviously, the different layers of Ratasum. This one here is, I guess, a map of the council chambers at the very top, while this one here is showing one of the lower floors down in Ratasum. Why they've made these changes could just be for a bit of quality of life, so it's easier to explore this city, as it can be a bit frustrating right now. I did see, however, on the post, and I will mention it, people are excited at the idea of the return of Polymok. So for those out of the loop, those who didn't play Guild Wars 1, when they released Eye of the North, which was the final big add-on for Guild Wars 1, as they were setting up Guild Wars 2 stuff, they introduced this minigame. It was designed specifically, I believe, like the head of the design for Polymok was Colin Johansson. Basically, in Guild Wars 1, you could collect these pieces that represented different enemies around the world, so you could maybe find a crate or something. And then you could play as this crate in kind of an almost like a turn-based mini arena that felt kind of Pokemon-ish, and it was never PvP, it was just PvE, but you would basically enter this long tournament challenge style thing and try and beat loads of different opponents around the world and winning more pieces for yourself, finding pieces that would drop out of chests at the end of dungeons, and taking them through to victory for like this long quest chain. It was this kind of a cool idea, and because it came with Eye of the North, it was one of these things that seemed to be suggesting, hey, Guild Wars 2 is going to have this minigame, it's going to have Polymok, and it's going to be fully fleshed out, and Guild Wars 2 doesn't like have dueling or whatever, but maybe one day it could have Polymok, and you could collect these different pieces around the world, and it'd be this amazing thing. Well, at some point before the release of Guild Wars 2, it was cut. However, in Ratasum, there is a portal that you can find that supposedly takes you to the Polymok arena. However, it's always been closed, always, even during the betas, this portal was closed. In the early days, some people managed to break out of the map before they added like the prison mechanic and stuff, where if you break out of Ratasum, you end up in jail. Some people did manage to break out. They managed to find the Polymok arenas and sort of explore those. That was always very cool to see. But really, I don't know whether you can even get back there anymore unless you use the trick where you go to the councillors' chambers and then break out of the map and then go there. Nonetheless, though, they did mention with Heart of Thorns that activities and adventures were going to be kind of tied. You know, like with adventures, a bunch of activities would come back to the game. Stuff like the archery shootout, which also never made it into the released game. So now we're seeing changes to the Ratasum map. Could it be, as well, as someone wildly speculated on this Reddit post, could it be that Polymok may be a thing? That would be pretty cool. We'll have to see. I can see a lot more news ArenaNet can bring out for us in the way of these activities and adventures we'll be doing. And we'll have Polymok and leaderboards. It could be very exciting. So, the next big thing I want to talk about was, this actually didn't come from that Sean, it was someone else who did this. They found a bunch of chat codes, and when you enter them in, they'll appear in your chat box. Like, say you're pinging a skill currently in game, you can ping skills that belong to the Revenant class. And, most excitingly, you can ping skills belonging to the Revenant class, belonging to weapons we haven't seen. So far, we know a variety of weapons that the Revenant can use, but the only thing we've been able to use and have footage of them using is Mace main hand, Axe offhand, and the Hammer. And so these skills we're familiar with, but through these chat codes that have been mined and have been found, we can actually have a look at the rest of the Revenant skills. Now, I will preface this, the whole video is prefaced with this fact. This isn't official, this isn't final, these could all change, many of this stuff could be placeholder stuff, a lot of it you'll see is completely unfinished, but let's see what ArenaNet's kind of toying with some ideas for the Revenant so far. So, here's an image someone compiled of all of the skills shown, so we'll work through. Of course, Axe offhand we've already seen, Frigid Blitz, this seems pretty final. Hurl your axe at a target, damaging and chilling the foes that the axe passes through. When it reaches your target, shadow step and deal a large blow. You've seen many players, you've seen even me using the skill many times. Also, happens to be that this is unblockable. We've got Temporal Rift as well. This is the 5. This creates a long line. It says slice into the mist, creating an unstable rift. After a short duration, this rift will collapse in on of itself and pull enemies in. And this one will apply torment to people, and this is kind of that cool 5 that cracks the earth and everyone sort of gets sucked in an interesting way. So we've seen these. But then we've got Dagger offhand. And so as an offhand, first of all, you should pay attention to the fact most offhands only have 2 skills. And so why do we see 3 things here under the dagger offhand section? That means one of these skills will rotate into another skill. And none of them have any names, none of them have any descriptions, but I think we can guess pretty well what these mean. So this one here just says it's just got a half a second cast time, no recharge associated with it whatsoever. It says it does 75 damage and it poisons people. Then we've got one here that has a 2.25 second on a 12-second cooldown, and this applies quickness to yourself for 4 seconds. And of course, this is very, very powerful. One thing you should consider is that the Revenant only has 1 weapon set. So when you see a skill like this that supposedly has a 12-second cooldown and 4 seconds of duration, we can honestly say, hey, this is a 1/3 of the time upkeep of quickness, in theory, because they're not even weapon swapping. You know, you could say that for other stuff on other classes, but there's going to be situations where you weapon swap away, and it's really not as powerful as it looks. But right here, this seems very strong, but the fact is this probably procs off of something else, like this skill over here that's inflicting the poison. Think about, say, the warrior block on sword, okay? They can pop this every now and then, and they'll be blocking, and while they're doing this, they can maybe pop a second one that gives them adrenaline back. Now, that one that gives them adrenaline back doesn't necessarily have any cooldown, but it's still limited by the fact it's tied to a different skill. You know, so this quickness may only proc with various other effects, and of course, it's kind of difficult to speculate. I think as if this was just literally, oh, press the button to get quickness for 4 seconds every 12 seconds, it's not only maybe a little bit strong, but it's also a very boring, unflavorful skill, and clearly there's something more at work here because we have 3 boxes. And lastly, we've got what would presumably be the 5, half a second cast, 18-second cooldown, does some flat damage, considerable flat damage. Again, the numbers we're seeing here, don't pay too much attention to them, because I think these screenshots were actually taken by someone who wasn't even in a level 80 area, they were downscaled. At least that would be my prediction. But here, this is going to be some kind of flat damage hit, three hits of flat damage on their dagger offhand, and also going to be applying 3 stacks of torment, so probably each hit applies 1 torment or something. And then we've got a number of targets, 5 here, so vaguely AoE. Then we've got the hammer. Hammer is also the other weapon we've seen, of course, and so I won't run you through all of these guys. You probably all are well familiar with the way that these are working. And again, do take note that the numbers are very low, so this is probably all downscaled. Here we get Mace, main hand. Here, again, we've seen, and it's got a lot of skills here, because obviously the auto attack will be rotating through 3 different iterations. Here we've got Shield. Shield, again, no names, no descriptions, but this is the new information. And so this has got some kind of flat damage on it. It will remove conditions off of 5 targets. It's unblockable. God knows how it will work. And then this one over here will be healing people. It has 3 different tiers of how much it will heal people for. Interestingly, the middle one is higher. No idea what's going on there. Then we've got Staff. We have some kind of Fury application on the auto attack. Then another rolling auto attack. And then a third one. Note that the first auto does 3 hits of damage, while these ones only do 2. Not sure how that's supposed to be working. Or maybe this is a bit like Mesmer, where it's like the first bounce does something. Again, though, the auto on Staff is a whirl. So could this be the kind of melee stuff where we're actually spinning around and rolling through people as we auto? We shall see. And then maybe these are projectiles that come flying off. And then let's move over to the skill 2. We've got some kind of cripple, weakness application. Over here we've got retaliation that we can somehow be applying, again with damage. And then another skill here that's just flat damage. Again, I think is probably interacting with this, considering this one doesn't have a cooldown, while this one has a 6-second cooldown and this one has a 10. And then we've got the skill 4, which applies taunt to enemies, reduces the damage you take by 25%. So this could be pretty good with like some kind of Ajalis attunement, and also is applying regeneration. So far seems quite tanky, especially like if you think about the application of weakness, the application of taunt, the application of regen. And then last we have the 5. These are obviously the big power skills. Massive knockback, and it has 9 impacts over 5 targets. So this sounds like some kind of almost meteor shower style thing, but it's 9 impacts flying out, and it probably won't be, you know, meteors coming down. They might just be projectiles flying out in fans, but it has a pretty big knockback on there too. So that's kind of cool. You'd pull everyone in with a 4 maybe, and then blow them all out this way. And so finally we've got Sword. This is Sword main hand. First 3 skills are going to be the rotating auto attacks. We got a lot of torment here. We've got 2 impacts, okay, each with torment here for 5 seconds. Not too long duration, but then the second rolling auto again is more torment with 1 impact, and then lastly some kind of hit at the end. The skill 2 is applying burning to people, so again another heavy condi weapon with 3 hits of flat damage, and lastly something that's applying might to ourselves, and may even be invulnerabling us, because you can see here we've got the little note that says prevents capture point contribution. So, and that's usually something with just invulnerabilities. Again, it's kind of hard to see how these work, and a lot of it could change. It's pretty exciting nonetheless. Maybe a little bit more exciting to me as an Elementalist main is also the fact that there were some weird things mined suggesting Sword main hand for the Elementalist. And a lot of this stuff you're going to look at and you're actually going to say, hey, these are just dagger skills. Look, like Impale, this is Dagger, Earth, Auto 1 right now. Dragon's Claw, this is... A lot of these, Vapor Blade down here, they seem to be dagger autos. So again, very, very placeholdery, but we do have some new stuff here. Chain, chop your foe twice, flaying shock. That's very interesting. We've got Rock Slice here, bleed your foe with a gash. We've got Frost Strike, gash your foe to make them vulnerable. And then there should be another one here. I think it's Ice Slash. Slash your foe to make them vulnerable. So, not sure what's going on here. These are all new things that have appeared. Seems very, very early days. Probably something that ArenaNet didn't expect would come in. But yeah, that's actually, if you piece everything together now, it seems like there's pretty solid hints for the new weapons many of the classes will get with their specializations already. Okay, so moving on, a few other little things. Don't really necessarily have some imagery for this. There is also a bunch of chat codes you can now enter that will show you some Revenant armor and weapons, like the armor that you see Revenants wearing, like where you to create them as a character. The default Revenant armor we got to see in the demos. Funny thing is that some of those people who have been in like the closed testing environments, because it's on their main accounts and because it's kind of live out there, when they played, they actually unlocked the Revenant armor on their accounts, and so then they can log in on their Warrior or their Guardian outside of test events and run around looking like Revenant. Someone had a post on Reddit about that the other day, like, oh, I just saw a Revenant, someone in Revenant armor. That's kind of the way they did it. I don't think it's necessarily a bannable thing. It certainly does seem a bit suspect, though. So here's something kind of new. Again, this is something I believe that that Shaman hasn't really talked about because there wasn't too much to say. However, there are in the client a couple of interesting images of some new nodes, some new things we should be able to harvest. I'll show you guys these now in the footage. This is the first one. This is some kind of new node that we can mine. I believe this is the regular version, and then if we hit next, we've got the rich version of the node here too. Who knows what this could be? I mean, it's kind of golden looking in there-ish, doesn't really look too exciting. Could be a totally new map we'll just be finding when we go out into Heart of Thorns areas. That's one of the things that excites me, you know, just new things that we'll be able to harvest. One perhaps thing it could be, though, is obviously we've got crystalline ore and ingots out there that we haven't really seen, and maybe this will be how we get those, like on the ascended tier of stuff. Or it could be something else completely. The slight yellowish hue, though, makes me think probably it's not that. And lastly, there was also this wonderful little thing here, this tree. And this seems like it's probably something we'll be able to harvest as well. The file name for this is Regrown Fruit Tree Green. And so maybe this is some kind of new logging thing that we'll be able to deal with. It looks a bit like those ones, the palm trees we dodge roll into at the Silver Waste, but I believe it is actually kind of different. So, moving on down the list, we've also got a couple of new monsters. Here's one of them. These are little mushroom guys that we actually got to fight. Again in the demo. I believe this guy doesn't have a texture on him, and also this badass like dragon Mordrum looking guy here. These are like the wolvie dudes that are going to run around and attack you. Really cool renders. Again, these weren't necessarily posted to Reddit. These have just been coming out of his Twitter. I think a couple of things we can expect probably from the next patch, like smaller scale, not Heart of Thorns necessarily, didn't mind stuff, is there has been seen a Quaggan mail carrier. There are 2 new mini pets. There are 2 outfits. One of them's Countess Anise, one of them's Balthazar, and these have actually been floating around for a while and could be some of the new stuff we get to see. I want to end the video, guys, on probably one of the more exciting things to me, and this is what was mined about the new legendary stances for the Revenant. So Revenant can swap into and channel various heroes of Tyrion's past. As we know, the 2 we have currently heard about are King Jarlis Ironhammer, who's a very tanky guy, and Malix the Unyielding, who is a very condition-heavy guy. Well, it seems that perhaps, again, this is not confirmed, this is unofficial, maybe there could be 3 more legendary stances. Why 3? It seems like the profession is most suited to have just 2 more, considering the trait lines seem to follow them, considering the way that the utility skills work. Well, do not forget that also the Revenant will be able to specialize, and perhaps when they specialize, they lose a trait line, they lose one of their legends, and it gets replaced with another legend and another trait line. So maybe this could be it. Maybe these could be all of the legends so far. Looks like, first of all, Glint may be one. And Glint, of course, I think many people were suspecting anyway from the trailer where we see Ritlock apparently channels from Glint, and also now that we know the way that the elite skills work, and the elite skills pretty much are the legends anyway, we know that this seems very, very likely. Then there is also, however, Ventari. Ventari is not someone who I necessarily saw coming. Ventari being the centaur, the caretaker of the Pale Tree in its early years of life, along with Ronan the human, but as a centaur he lived much longer. Ventari who wrote down the tablets. Ventari who turned away from from war, unlike many of his centaur brethren. Really, really cool character, and actually it would be fantastic. Think about playing a Sylvari Revenant channeling Ventari. That's kind of cool, right? And lastly, one that I very much was looking forward to, Shiro Togachi, great nemesis, envoy of the mists, bringer of the plague affliction from Guild Wars 1 factions. He may also be someone we can channel. Again, these could be subject to change. I think actually that lineup of legends is a really exciting lineup. Which one may be exclusive to the specialization, if that's the way they're going, though? I have no idea. Maybe Glint. Maybe because Glint is like a dragon, and maybe the specialization is like called Dragon Keen or something. Christ only knows. Well, there you go, guys. That's pretty much it. That's all the juicy information we've had so far from Data Mining. I'm pretty sure we're up to date now. Sorry it took a little while for us to get this out. I guess I'll see you tomorrow for some more news as it comes. If not, I've got some cool ideas for things I've actually been doing in-game lately. I'd love to show off with you guys. But yeah, thanks very much, guys. Hope you're enjoying this stuff, and I guess I'll see you tomorrow as Heart of Thorns continues to wind closer. Have a great evening, guys.